Home entertainment isn't exactly an area that I've tackled before on this channel. Well, unless you include the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, that is. But apart from gaming, watching movies is actually one of my absolute favorite pastime activities, and in the pursuit of the best possible way to experience these movies, I've always wanted to have a great home theater sound system. But I also always lived in an apartment, and still do, where let's say choices and modifications are limited. So when browsing around for tips and hints on how to optimize a space for movie watching, more often than not I encountered ultimate setups, meaning full-on dedicated theater rooms, or the minimalist opposite in the form of a single soundbar or compact system in a box. But what if you wanted something in between, a system that sounded better than average while still looking somewhat normal, where the living room doesn't give off a single purpose vibe and remains a place to hang out even if you aren't watching TV? After following numerous breadcrumb trails to the source, I finally got what I wanted, and along the way, learned a thing or two. So if you are in a similar situation, or have an existing setup and wonder if there's anything you can do to improve it, even without spending a dime, maybe there is something in this video for you. If not, get ready to waste around 20 minutes of your lifespan. First off, I'm by no means an expert on this matter. I also wouldn't call myself an audiophile, but I do very much appreciate good sound and will go the extra mile if it is within reach. I have had multiple setups in the past though, with my last one consisting of an AV receiver, 4 bookshelf speakers, a center channel, and a subwoofer. This was pretty good, but still, I always felt a little left out, like something was missing, or to be more precise, something just didn't sound right. Either the dialogue in movies was hard to understand, or the bass was so overpowering or boomy to an extent that made me frantically change the volume during viewings. This has improved over the years, with new software tweaks making the rounds, but none were really satisfying long term, and everything always had a bitter aftertaste, like trading dynamics for voice clarity and vice versa. Fast forward to today with probably my last attempt at a system like this, and what can I say? I think I finally got it. But where to start? Well, let's turn back the clock to the beginning of this project, where I actually wanted to go in a completely different direction. Originally I intended to abandon my dedicated speakers and go for a soundbar, but that quickly changed after digging through numerous Reddit and forum posts where others asked the same question, and overwhelmingly the response was always the same: it depends. The biggest benefit of a soundbar over dedicated speakers is that it's one unit and will likely be the least visually distracting system you can get. They're also fast to set up, and a one-glove-fits-all solution that will vastly increase the audio experience over the built-in speakers, especially in today's ridiculously flat TVs. The second option is to go one step further with a home theater in a box, and for me that was a choice between the Sony HD89s or their successor, the Bravia Theater Quad. Now these I have never seen in person, but the reviews online are overwhelmingly positive. Like soundbars, they're also much smaller than any dedicated bookshelf or floor-standing speakers, making them nicely blend into your apartment while supposedly giving you a dome of sound as seen in the marketing videos. They can come at a steep price though. I've seen the 89s for as low as $1,500 and the theater quads for around $2,500, the latter of which is a heck of a lot of money. Which is why when asking about them online, the internet will quickly point you towards a dedicated system again, that can be had for much less and potentially give you even better results, which is a path that I ended up taking. Before we dive into that, there is another contender, and it's Sonos. For the longest time I actually was set on getting the Arc soundbar, a subwoofer, and 2 Era 300s as surround speakers. I was always interested in these as they not only looked great but were also very reliable, that is until recently. Just as I was looking into this, the infamous app update happened. If you're out in the loop on this one, Sonos recently released a new version of their mobile app, and as the functionality of these speakers is tied to said app, it's a very important part of the Sonos experience. Unfortunately, that experience took a big hit with the update, which removed existing features and in some cases even broke setups. Things have gotten better since, but this left a rather bad impression on a lot of folks, myself included. Because of this and the promise of a better sound experience, I ended up deciding to stick with a dedicated system. But if you're new to this, you might wonder what exactly is a dedicated system in the first place. Well, simply put, you have to buy all the parts separately and put it together by yourself. That includes the AV receiver as well as your speakers of choice and the cables in between, which opens up a lot of options. Think of it like building a PC versus buying a laptop. The fun part is you can decide on the speaker configuration yourself. The most common setup you might have heard of is probably 5.1, where you have a left and right speaker, a center one, and 2 surrounds in the back as well as 1 subwoofer. You probably already put one and one together and realized that the 5.1 represents the total amount and type of speakers, which is a good moment to talk about the setup that I settled on, which is a 3.1.2 configuration. That means the same front, left and right, center and subwoofer, as well as 2 Atmos upfiring speakers for that added height dimension, hence the last 0.2 in the schema. Now, with all this talk about theater-like sound, you're probably wondering why leave out the surround speakers? Isn't surround sound what we associate most with a theater-like experience, and for that you need, well, surround speakers? Well, yes and no, because over the years I came to the conclusion that a good stereo pair beats any mediocre surround system any day of the week. With the limited space I have, especially with the lack of any behind the couch, which is quite common in an apartment setting I believe, I'd rather choose this path over a more subtle boxed set with surrounds or a soundbar. Yes, I won't get any real sound from the rear, but you'd be surprised how good the immersion can get with just a competent front setup, but more on that later. So after having decided to stick with dedicated speakers and the configuration, it was time to look for the right ones, and as stupid as this may sound, I never really thought about the placement of the speakers and how that may affect my choice. I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but in all these years of buying home theater equipment and spending hours upon hours on tweaking settings and figuring out the best hardware combination I could afford, it never occurred to me that changing the placement of the actual speakers would have any significant impact, and boy was I wrong. In hindsight, I really feel rather stupid for this, as it seems so obvious, like having speakers at ear level, because, well, that's where your ears are. It's like buying the best OLED TV in the world just to end up watching movies from the side. All those organic LEDs aren't going to help you if they don't face you. So if you have bookshelf speakers, get them off the ground. If wall mounting them is not an option, there are plenty of speaker stands out there in various designs. I ended up picking floor standing loudspeakers simply because I could not find any stands that I liked and where I felt that they would blend into the background well enough. There are some good looking combinations out there though, like the Bucard P300 or the S400 Mark IIs with their matching stands, but those are so pretty that they draw too much attention to them, which is why I ended up with the Monitor Audio Bronze 200s, and in my opinion, very good middle ground, and they're also much cheaper. These are also the smallest floor standing speakers I could find within my vicinity, at a height and width of just 90 and 16.5 centimeters, which is perfect when combined with the couch that's placed opposite of them. Getting a height right is very important, but the distance between them shouldn't be ignored either. I'm going to pull a really lazy one here and tell you to check the manual of your speakers. For example, the optimal distance between the front left and right on my monitor audios has to be at least 3 meters. Now, if I hadn't read this, I would have placed them right next to the TV, which is what I believe most of us would do instinctively. However, comparing the sound between these two configurations opened up a world of regret to me. A regret to all the systems I had before and how I didn't do them justice. Now granted, not everyone will have the luxury to place them in their optimal position. Your room or wall size will limit what is possible, and there is also a limit to this. There is a point at which placing them too far apart from each other will introduce other issues and or require you to tow them in more aggressively. More on that later. Issues can also arise if you place them in a corner. There's a lot that needs to be considered if you want to place your speakers in an optimal way. Following recommendations from a manual to a pulp can also lead to unsatisfying results. After all, apartments are all built very differently, and this is where experimentation will probably lead to the best results. It might take a lot of additional time, but it may very well be worth it. The same goes for the next subject, and this is another doozy: how far away the speakers are supposed to be from the back wall. Again, in all those years prior, I just pushed him all the way back. I don't know why I never thought about this, but you see it in a lot of other setups too, and for the uninformed, it seems perfectly normal. But this can cause boomy bass, which I had. Moving them further away from the back wall can alleviate this issue, but this is something that really depends on the speakers, your room acoustics, and your preferences. For the record, I do prefer the added distance, but I can only speak for myself. Sometimes though, you may have no other choice but to have them flush against the wall, be it for limited space or simply because you can't stand having speakers standing in the middle of the room. And that's where port bunks might come in handy. To explain what these do, I have to very briefly get a tiny little technical about the port itself, which is the hole on the back of most loudspeakers. It handles the lower frequencies the woofer can't, which is the big round thing at the front. The closer the speaker is to the wall, the more of it will bounce off it and into the room, causing boomy bass. The further it is away, the more of that air will dissipate before it hits the wall. Port bungs will limit the amount of air that comes out of the port and therefore allows you to place the speakers closer to the wall. If your speakers didn't ship with bungs, there are third-party ones available online, and since trying these out is a rather low investment, it's something that might be worth giving a shot. There are also speakers out there with front-facing ports, however most seem to be bookshelf-sized. Floor-standing variants do exist, but I've seen a bit of a divide as to whether or not they are a good choice or not. Anyhow, if you're looking for something like this, I'd suggest doing more research, or maybe someone more knowledgeable will chime in later in the comments. I simply wanted to point out that they do exist. Next we're going to talk about towing in, which refers to having the speakers pointed in the direction of your seating position, or close to it, depending on your setting. Now, I feel this is a practice where opinions are also a bit divided. Even for my monitor audios, the manual says yes for music listening and no for an AV environment. I've also read that depending on how far separated your front speakers are, the more towing in becomes a necessity. For the 3-meter configuration I have, a tiny few degrees might not hurt. However, for now I left my 200s facing straight forward. I felt the difference wasn't big enough, especially after room correction, which I will be talking about more in the next chapter. The same goes for the actual distance that your speakers need to reach your ears. In many instances, it is recommended that you have something called an equilateral triangle, meaning the distance between you and the speakers is the same as between the speakers themselves, creating a triangle with equal sides. An equilateral triangle. This can get very technical very fast, and I don't know enough about this subject to be able to talk freely about it, but to summarize, the speaker placement plays a huge factor in how your home theater is going to end up sounding, and depending on your limitations, there might be speakers that fit better than others. I also didn't talk about surrounds or in-ceiling speakers at all. I do have the up-firing Dolby Atmos units from Monitor Audio, but since placing them is entirely based upon how the 200s are placed, it's kind of a no-brainer. I can't say much about side and rear-facing surrounds, other than that they too have recommended placements, which you should look up and see if this is something you want to deal with in an apartment setting. The good thing is, if you decided to go with dedicated speakers, you can always extend to surrounds later. As a start, I would recommend experimenting with the front first, which is something I feel rather stupid for saying because I fear that it might be so obvious, but since I was enlightened now, I hope I'm going to reach at least one lost soul out there with this video. Anyway, we're not finished yet, there's 2 more to go. First, the center speaker, and I hope nobody's going to take up their pitchforks when they see how mine is set up. Yes, it's not actually in the center, and it isn't even ear level either. This is a trade-off that I had to make. I wish there was another way, but I can't replace the cabinet below simply because I like it too much. I know it's a bit hypocritical of me, after talking so much about positioning and then just throwing everything out of the window. Still, the clarity I get from this center speaker is fantastic. Let's just say I can watch Christopher Nolan movies without subtitles. I don't get every word, nobody does.
Well, then we better put it out the hole before the bomb goes off, eh?
But I get most of it, and that's way more than what I can say for my last setup. By the way, this speaker is perfectly fine being placed in a cabinet, because it was made for such a use case as it has no ports in the back. Anyway, it would be better if it was perfectly centered and pointing towards my ears, but I don't have any other choice at this time, as neither placing it above nor below the cabinet leads to a better experience. Trust me, I tried. Lastly, there's the subwoofer placement, the one speaker where most often you'll hear that you can set it up anywhere in the room, and you'll be fine. But that's not entirely true. Yes, having it point towards you isn't mandatory, but there is a way to find the best place for it, and it involves something called the subwoofer crawl. When I first read about this, I thought this was an audiophile joke placed on all of us normies to see if we would actually go through with it. You know, like sushi. But having done it, I have to say it actually works. You know, like sushi. Oh, this is actually pretty good. Either that or audiophile mind tricks have once again worked on me. What you have to do is you take this sub and place it at your listening position. That's right, you place it where you sit. And you can also give it your face, but that's optional. After that you hook it up and play some bass heavy music and walk around the room to find the spot where the bass sounds the best. Upon hitting gold, you swap positions with the sub, and unlike me, it has finally found its place in the world. Of course, I didn't invent this, and if you want to get a deeper dive on the subject, check out the video from Andrew Robinson where he explains the entire setup process in more detail. Now luckily for me, the best position was in the corner behind the couch. I say lucky because this way the sub is a little more hidden, as mine is quite a big and chunky unit. The second best location was on the opposite side, to the left of the TV, probably where I would have placed it if I didn't know about the crawl, but the difference is very noticeable, so I'm glad that I did. After computing all this information about speakers and their placement, it's time to move over to the last part, which is all about AV receivers, in particular the calibration. It's also where costs can get a little out of hand. The AV receiver is the brains of the operation. It switches between all connected devices and makes sure both your TV and your speakers get the best possible signal. Meaning you can connect your PS5, Xbox, Apple TV or anything else with an HDMI or other compatible signal to it and allow you to switch between them without relying on the inputs of your TV. Just like with the speakers, there are a lot of AV receivers out there, and it's important to make sure that the intended one will support the number of devices, speakers, as well as being able to play back your intended media the way you want it to. And just like with the speakers again, I also won't be going through a list of them as this isn't the focus of this video. However, there is one feature in particular that in my opinion is very important, and that's room correction. If you have a dedicated media room, hanging up sound panels, setting up bass traps, or even just laying a carpet is a non-issue, but if the room is just a room that serves multiple purposes, none of these or only a part of them is actually feasible. This is where room correction comes in, intended to fix physical shortcomings by adjusting the EQ accordingly. Most if not all modern receivers ship with such a feature, including the needed microphone to take the measurements of your room. You basically set it up in your primary listening position, and after the receiver sends out a couple of test signals, it'll then adjust the output accordingly. Different brands will have different names for this, like on my old Denon it was called Odyssey EQ, and for a Sony amp I once had, it was simply called auto calibration. But there's another kid in town, a third-party solution that works across multiple brands but only on select models, called Direct Live, promising better correction than any of the built-in options by using more extensive measurements and correction techniques as well as an adjustable target curve. Blinded by this promise, I picked up the Onkyo TX RZ50, which is I believe the only AV receiver on the market at the moment that ships with Direct Live included. Yeah, that's right, otherwise this is a paid license you have to get separately, and it's limited to supported receivers too. It's a hefty $259 or $349 for the full bandwidth version, and if you want to include multiple subwoofers, it can go up to as much as $599, which is a lot of money if you consider that receivers can cost you hundreds if not thousands of dollars in the first place. Originally I wanted to go for the Marantz Cinema 70S as I was intrigued by the small form factor, but decided against it because Direct isn't supported and the higher end models from Marantz that do support it cost more than the RZ50 even without the Direct license. Setting up calibration definitely takes some time, and it also helps if you have some sort of a tripod in order to place the microphone in all the right spots. Don't worry, the software will guide you through it nicely, but if possible I would do it on a computer. I find it much easier than on a phone or a tablet. I won't go into detail on how to do this, and instead refer to a great video from Sam Dan's Couch, which I used as a guide myself, so go check that one out and you'll know all you need about Direct and how to set it up. More importantly, the results were and still are stunning. When I first plugged in the entire system, I was already amazed at how detailed everything sounded, but after the calibration, it's on another level. The soundstage is just massive, that when I sat in the theater the other day watching Deadpool and Wolverine, my first reaction was, this sounds kinda narrow.
What the f?
Cocky attitude aside, I generally wouldn't want to go back, and every now and then during a movie I will switch it off just to see how it sounds without it, and every time my reaction is the same.
Nope.
The best way I can describe it is that Direct makes the speakers disappear, which sounds a bit weird, but hear me out on this one. Without it, you can definitely tell where the sound is coming from, but with it, the source disappears, and instead, the entire room is filled with sound, where individual objects in the scene seem to be placed in the room individually, rather than coming from a wall of sound. The effect is even more noticeable in games, and yes, I'm still playing Horizon Forbidden West. I never finished it and just picked it up again. But that's besides the point. While running around, I passed by a waterfall, and I couldn't help but notice how full and present it sounded. It was like I was under the waterfall, in my room. The same goes for characters and monsters in the distance. It wasn't just great positioning, it felt like it was far away, way further than the walls of my living room would allow it. The gist of it is, it's amazing, even without having surround speakers behind me, assuring my decision to go this route over the box solutions. But then again, I never heard those in this setting either, so I actually can't say how this fares in comparison. I can only assure you that this is working pretty great for me. I also can't stress enough how incredible concert videos sound. The living room generally feels like you're in the middle of the venue, and while testing out the setup, I got lost listening and watching constantly. However, like with everything I said in this video, just because this worked for me doesn't mean it'll work for everyone. There are numerous people online who don't like direct, or where the difference between it and the traditional measurement wasn't big enough to justify the price, which makes picking and deciding on hardware very difficult. If the RC50 is within your budget, it is a great solution though. I bought it used for about $1,000 and I'm pretty happy that I managed to snag it up over the Marantz Cinema 70. To wrap things up, picking the right type of speaker system is the key. If you want ease of use, soundbars and home theaters in a box can give you fantastic results in a short amount of time with minimal distraction in your home. But at some point you're gonna cross the mark where you have to ask yourself, wouldn't a dedicated system get you more for the same amount of money? But at the same time, can you deal with the potential monolithic blocks taking center stage in your living room? Some will never get used to the look, and others will always mind the additional setup work, which I can totally understand. But you'll get full control, and you can expand or shrink your setup at moment's notice. Deciding on the hardware is just the beginning though. Placing the speakers as best as your room allows it to is crucial too. If in need, ask online, or search for people who had or are in the process of trying to do the same thing. If you're anything like me, there's likely a smarter person out there that will point you in the right direction. But even if you already have a system, try to play around with the positioning, experiment with it. You'd be surprised how much of a difference this can make. If you have a direct compatible receiver, maybe bite the bullet, cross your fingers and hope it's going to do the same for you as it did for me. After all is said and done, I hope you can sit down, relax, crack open a cold one and enjoy your favorite pastime activity. I hope this video was somewhat enjoyable too, and thank you so much for sticking around till the end. Let me know what your thoughts are on this subject, and as always, thank you again for watching and see you in the next one. Bye!